Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Samson. So today's Daily Run is on a Monday, and Mondays are very special to a lot of people around the world because they represent something different. They represent an end of a nice period. They represent the beginning of something horrible. You have to get up early in the morning to either go to school, not now because it's the summer holidays, at least for most part of the world I think, or you have to go to work. And again, that's not something people generally enjoy because that you're kind of reminded in that spot, oh, I have to do this because it's kind of required to survive, but I would just rather play games at home, right? It's a very universally relatable feeling, and because of that, they've decided to commemorate that in Isaac by basically making every single Monday daily a hard mode daily. Now, what does this mean? You might think that this is not that big of a deal because hard mode dailies don't tend to be much different than just regular dailies, or like if you're playing hard mode to normal mode, there's not much of a difference, and to a lot of extent you would be right. If you've been playing this game for any prolonged period of time, you probably don't even know what normal mode looks like because you have to play on hard mode in order to really unlock everything that the game has to offer. The problem here is that when you're used to playing normal mode dailies and then you're struck with a hard mode daily like one time in the week, you end up finding that the hard mode is usually a little bit more annoying than you would like it to be. Now, most often not, I don't think there's a difference. You don't even notice that you're playing a hard mode daily unless maybe you notice that there's more champions and something doesn't drop. But overall, the feel of the run doesn't feel all that much different to a normal mode run. But the problem does arise when you end up noticing, or at least when you end up stucking on a really annoying run. So a run that has a lot of champions, where you don't have a lot of damage, or where there's just a lot of curses in the game. And that can end up really slowing you down. And I feel like that's when things become much more obvious. When you're trying to get to boss rush, or maybe to Hush in a very set amount period of time, and it feels like the game is working against that in every single aspect. It's not giving a lot of speed upgrades, it's not giving a lot of DPS, there are just curses on every single floor, there's just a bunch of champions which have way too much HP and just takes you forever to kill them. In a regular run, that's not that big of a deal because you can afford to take that time, you can afford to take some damage to speed things up a little bit, but in daily runs you really can't afford to do any of that, so you have no way to really, what I would say, propel yourself forward, and you're just kind of stuck in this weird limbo where you're trying to not take as much damage, but at the same time you're also trying to go as fast as possible. So it's like, what do I do here? And in this particular daily, what ended up happening is the first floor was an XL floor, and that's usually not that big of a deal. I would say that's usually a positive because of two reasons. First of all, you get the second treasure room, which you would usually get on the second floor for free, so you don't have to use a key to get into it. But I think a bigger benefit is the fact that after every regular floor that's just not an XL floor, you actually get a 33% chance, increased 33% chance of getting a devil deal on the next floor. But if it's an XL floor, then you get a 66% increased chance. So that ends up meaning, because if you get an XL floor on the first floor, not only are you guaranteed to get a devil deal, of course, if you don't take any red heart damage, you're also going to have a 66% chance on the next floor. And that then end up really boosting your run and just making it a lot stronger. Now, devil deals aren't as important as they used to be for the success of your run, but they obviously still help a lot, and especially in daily runs where you're trying to get just basically every single competitive advantage that you can, having or abusing or just having that knowledge in your head can end up being really beneficial and just really giving a lot of score in the end, because it might be the difference between you, for example, getting the shovel or not, and getting the shovel can end up just giving you like 10,000 points by itself. So it's really good to know this, and I think it's something that gets generally, or at least it's generally not noticed by a lot of people who play this. Now, I understand a lot of people take this game as competitively as I do, or maybe some of the top players do, and it's understandable, right? Why would you even bother when the game doesn't feel all that competitive? And honestly said, it really isn't. But still, it's a nice tidbit of information to have if you're trying to get as high of a score as possible. In this particular one, what ended up happening is, while that's very good to get an XL floor on the first floor, the second floor was also an XL floor, and that's really unfortunate because essentially every single benefit of the first XL floor, except for that extra key, which is not really all that beneficial to be honest, gets negated on the second floor, because now you're only gonna get one devil deal. There's no chance you're gonna get two devil deals. So it's always better, if you're gunning for devil deals, to get two devil deals as opposed to one, right? Even if there's no chance, like if you have an XL floor, it's usually gonna be a higher chance to get a devil deal as opposed to if it isn't, at least in this context, because like I said before, if you don't get a devil deal on the first extra floor, you're gonna have a 66% chance to get the devil deal on the second floor. But no matter what your odds are, you're still only gonna get one devil deal at the end, whereas opposed in the fact if you had 2 floors as opposed to 1 extra floor, there would actually be chances to get 2 devil deals. And because there's a lot of ways to increase your devil deal chance, like blowing up beggars, or I think also blowing up shopkeepers in some extent, is also going to boost that devil deal chance. You're going to want to do that, and just having more chances of getting devil deals is going to be super beneficial on a run that is as weak as this one was. Now, I'm not saying it's always a good idea or like that it's always bad, but in this particular instance, it ended up being really annoying because I didn't get a lot of DPS upgrades at the start. I got Small Rock, which can be both a curse and a blessing, because obviously it gives you some DPS, it gives you some damage, it gives you some tier upgrades. But what it also does is slows you down, and when it slows you down and trying to get as fast, and basically Small Rock is your only DPS upgrade, the damage you're gonna get is not really gonna make up for the time you're gonna lose by being slow, essentially. You really need to rely on other forms of doing damage, or just other ways of scumming the game in some sense, to really get through. And for that exact reason, I decided to pick up number 2. And number 2 is an item which I think is generally unappreciated by the community. But I mean, I understand why it's unappreciated. It can end up damaging you a lot, and it can be really annoying to kind of navigate through it. And especially when you're fighting an enemy like the brown poop bosses or whatever they are, the explosion can end up healing them. So it can be really annoying, and again, just tedious to get through their HP because they're constantly healing. You have to watch out how far you're shooting, how fast you're shooting, when you're shooting. You have to stop at certain points. It just adds this extra level of complexity, which you really shouldn't deal with in the first place, and it just, like I said before, makes everything a little bit more tedious. Now, if you do get past that point and you're just kind of okay with scumming or abusing like an item like number 2 to deal the majority of your damage, which is I think what I did in this particular one, and it's actually a wonder I didn't get hit more often. Usually when I use number 2, yeah, number 1 is the one that makes you shoot fast. Yeah, number 2, and spawn a lot of poop bombs. It's so hard, it's so easy to get hit, especially against enemies which have random movements, right? And you can end up blocking yourself off. So yeah, I didn't get hit a lot, and for that exact reason, like, because I figured I was gonna get hit a lot, I didn't really bank on the fact I'm gonna go to sacrifice shrooms, so I wasn't really even stockpiling on health as much as I probably should have. Now, why would I want to go to sacrifice room? Obviously, because I can teleport to the dark room on a run that goes to Mom's Heart. That's usually a really good idea, because you're gonna end up with a really large score boost at the end. So I decided to kind of forgo that, and I decided to go in the direction of either trying to find an AWOS rune or the shovel. Now, a funny thing is, I did find the shovel at a certain point, and it would have definitely been a good idea to pick it up, because it would ended up just giving me more points, because I could have gone to shovel for basically for free. I did decide not to pick it up in that exact case, because it just... first of all, I felt like I still needed some damage for boss rush, and having the Razor alongside the Polaroid is actually a really good combo, because usually whenever you use an item that damages you, it deals damage to your health directly, even if you have a shield. But in the case of the Razor, for some reason it works a little bit differently. So essentially, when you have the shield from the Polaroid, you can just end up spamming the Razor and just get like 40 damage if you use it like 10 times in that short time period. And that can end up giving a really large damage boost, which is usually unconsequential. But if you're trying to fight like a room like a boss rush, or maybe if you're fighting Harsh, or maybe Satan, or basically any other big boss, having that much damage is not only going to speed everything up by a very significant amount, but it's also make everything a little bit safer. So for that reason, I decided to stick with the Razor, and I just figured, I'm not trying, I won't try to make it to show unless something really lucky happens, and I either find another item which is going to help me get there. And luckily, like really luckily, that's exactly what happened. I found an AWOS rune in one of the chests, or like one of the stone chests, I think, that I blew up. Which wouldn't have happened if this run actually went further, because if this run actually did have Harsh, I wouldn't have probably stopped in that particular room, but because I knew it didn't have it, I wasn't in a hurry, so I figured I might as well do every single room, try to get as much point as possible. So in all of that sense, this particular run was both annoying, because it really didn't start getting good up until a certain point, and even when it got good, it wasn't really good, right? Sure, we had 80 damage at the end, but it's mainly because of the scumming with the Razor Blade and the Polaroid. But besides having a lot of damage and a lot of tears, it wasn't really all that entertaining or engaging as a run. We did a lot of damage, we basically melted the final boss here as we were trying to fight him. But besides that, it didn't really give us anything special. Like, it wasn't what I would say enjoyable to play. Still, we did manage to beat everything that's going on in the run. We did manage to pick up the trophy, and in the end I think we ended up ranking 7th. And being 7th, you know, again, is a little bit what I would say deceiving, mainly because a lot of players who play this game seriously have kind of stopped playing it, so I assume that most of the players who are still playing are mainly because they're either new to the game or because they're just trying to get the achievements. Now, I did say this before, but you know, this is just like a full disclaimer that the score 7th might seem really, really good, but you have to keep in mind what the level of playing field is here, right? It's obviously much softer than it was in the past. Still, a relatively good score, a relatively fun run, I guess, because it was a little bit more challenging than usual, and because it's a hard mode daily, I always feel like getting through one of those just means that every subsequent daily in that particular week is gonna be that much better, although that's usually not the case. So without all of that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.